Good evening, guys. Welcome to another session of Severe Tech Talks. Today I'm suffering from a severe cough, so please excuse me if I huff and puff along the way. So today we'll be looking at some of the trends that are likely to emerge in the next year, and also some trends that are likely to prevail into the future from this 2018 year. Okay, technology is actually rapidly evolving the way we live, so it has to definitely affect the way that we test and develop our software as well, right? So with the rapid advancement of technology around us, it has been essential that as QA engineers and also as developers that we continue to upgrade our skills to match those with the competition. So for an example, if we take a mobile app, about 20% of mobile apps are uninstalled after just using twice, just because either they are slow or they are crashing, or maybe they are not up to the customer standards. And if you take a website, it has been found out that about 54% of website visits are abandoned just after 3 seconds because they didn't load up in that time. So these kind of alarming facts increase the need to provide quality applications and quality software to the clients ahead of the competition in a short time as much as possible. So this tech talk will summarize some of the skills that we will need to develop as testers and also as developers to ensure that we provide our customers such quality software and quality websites in the future. So let's jump right into the facts. Okay, the first one is something that is similar to us. So Agile has been popular in the software industry for the last 15 years or so, and the popularity has been ever more increasing. So as you can see in the graph as well, so only about 11 or 10% of companies in surveys in 2018 are reported to not use any sort of agile methodology on their businesses, and it's also predicted that by 2020 all the businesses will be using some sort of an agile method in at least one of their products. So that means agile is becoming more and more popular. So that means the software, the main reason for agile to become popular is, as you all know, the customers can get a workable product every 2 or 3 weeks as we develop products incrementally. So in agile, the change that we can see in the future is the development cycles will be more and more shorter, and to cope up with that, we'll have to do more thorough testing and more better development in order to cope up with that requirements. So one trend is that the developers and the QA quality assurance people's roles might get emerged in some way, which brings out a role known as the automation engineer. So who is a QA engineer who is pretty more technical than the conventional QAs. So that's one trend we can see in the coming future in most of the IT companies. This is currently being implemented and experimented in some of the leading IT companies in Sri Lanka as well, with the role of automation engineer. So that role will make the developer and the QA to work ever more closely, and it will also bring out these words DevOps and QAOps, which we are familiar with, but some of the companies who are doing IT are not still familiar with these things if they are not using Agile. So these words come into play mostly with Agile framework. As you can also see in this graph, the usage of DevOps has been pretty much popular in 2014. It was like 25%, and by 2017 it's almost gone to 100%. So this DevOps and QAOps will help the organizations to be more quality first and leverage their QA work so that the products that they produce to the customers are pretty much tested very thoroughly. So the next one is automation and machine learning. So test automation helps us to ensure that as a company, as a project team, we have a strong regression test suite to make sure that our smoke tests and regression tests pass successfully. So some of the benefits in automation are increased speed, improved quality, and also reduced costs. So by using automation frameworks, we can actually reduce the time to market of a software by a very large margin, because it will reduce the time taken for all the tests to be done by very much. But one thing that we have to consider when doing automation is if your product is changing very much in a short period of time, then you might have to consider having automation for that test if your QA team is not scaled enough to cope up with those changes. So if you have a separate QA team for the automation work, then it might be okay. But if the QA team has to do more manual work and also do large automation framework managing, then it might not be possible with large and complex projects. But in GBO, I think almost all the projects have automation and we can manage it, so they are not that complex. And also when talking about automation, it's not only about UI automation. We can also consider about things like the API automation and such things. So that would be more trending in the future than this year. And the next most important thing is using machine learning. So it has been becoming a trend to use machine learning to design test frameworks and test suites. To gather data, they are using data mining. So you might have seen that in social networking sites, the advertising agencies use our own personal data, which are public, to display advertisements of our taste. So they might use the posts we share or posts we like in order to do that. So likewise, we can use data mining in test automation, test framework designing as well. So for an example, if there's a pretty complex project which needs a lot of test case writing, so since humans are prone to errors, writing test cases or gathering data for test scenarios might be pretty difficult if we do it manually. So using machine learning and using data mining algorithms and stuff, we might be able to get the correct data that we want and pinpoint our test cases into the exact test scenario that we want to test. And also, if we have, as a team, if you have a lot of QA members in the team, test case duplication might occur, and also we might miss important test scenarios manually. So if we use data mining methods to make sure that every test case covers all the important scenarios of a test scenario, so then it will be very beneficial for us. And also, I think test case duplication can be avoided as well. Okay, so the next thing is open source. So this is regarding the test automation tools. So 88% of IT companies actually prefer open source tools for test automation like Selenium, and very small amount of people are using Microsoft and Qtp by HP. So that means more and more people are shifting towards automation now, open source now, because it's cost effective and easily customizable. And also I think the support community for open source tools is more and more increasing day by day. So I think that's another reason that makes the companies shift towards open source tools. And it's also easily customizable and more flexible for the users. So I think using open source tools will be another trend in the future when it comes to software testing. Alright. So the next most important thing is IoT testing. So as we all know, there will be more and more interconnected devices in the future than ever before. So we'll always have to test these interconnected devices in some way. So IoT testing will be more and more important in the future. So as you can see in this graph as well, this is the number of IoT devices in the world in billions against time. So by 2025, it's actually predicted to be double the amount that we have by 2018. So that's a lot of IoT devices in the world that we'll be having to test. So obviously it's going to be a main type of testing that we'll have to be doing in the next couple of years. And some of the important testing that we can do for IoT devices is scalability testing, where if it's an application where we have to make sure that the application is scalable for any new devices that are coming to the market. And also we can do reliability and security testing, where we have to make sure the data that we access through multiple devices has to be pretty secure enough and not vulnerable to third parties. And another thing that might come into focus with IoT devices is big data testing, where there will be large amounts of data that we have to test when it comes to interconnected devices in the world. So I think as QA people will have to come up with pretty solid plans to make sure that such testing is done to all these IoT devices. So security, so big data testing is a testing type that comes with this usage of large amount of interconnected devices. So for an example, let's say a smart car, which is going to be pretty popular in the next decade, is going to produce about 1 GB of data. In 1 hour, it's going to produce about 25 gigabytes of data when it's operational. So likewise, with the increasing amount of devices that come into play in the IT field, the amount of data that we will be having to test will also be really large. And big data is manually something that we cannot process manually alone. So we need some automation tools, and also the usage of usage of machine learning and artificial intelligence might come into play when we test big data as well. So next thing is security testing. So with some recent scenarios like the Cambridge Analytica incident and stuff, people are more and more concerned about their private data now. So we have to make sure that data is not vulnerable to any third parties. So security testing will be another main type of testing that we'll be going to do in the future. I think in our projects we are not much concerned about security testing. It actually depends on the project type as well, but still I think we have to look more into the side of security testing of our applications and websites as well, because it's going to be one of the most important things in the future. So the next one is, I think, the most important thing. So I think mobile applications or smartphones are going to be pretty popular in the market by the next decade. So I would say that the time from 2005 to 2015 was the time of the laptop, and 2015 to 2025 would be the time of the smartphone. So the website traffic produced by smartphones is also increased by 2018. It's almost 50%. So that means people are using 50% of the people are using smartphones to access the internet. So that means that amount will be increasing in the future as well. So I think mobile app testing or having to develop mobile apps for almost all the products that we do now will be a key thing in the future. This mobile app testing is not going to be easy because we'll be having to do it in a lot of devices, and we already have experience in testing applications in mobile. So in the future, even let's say an employee from Red Engine might want to create online data using smartphones. So that's a possibility. So we'll have to prepare ourselves for those possibilities, because in the future it's going to be the era of the mobile. So for an example, what we did using our laptops 5 years ago, we are doing them now using our smartphone. For an example, we are browsing the internet using smartphones. We are doing our online shopping using smartphones, and we are even doing our online banking stuff using our smartphones. So most of the people don't use laptops for those stuff now. So that means we'll be having to test more and more smartphones and mobile phones in the future. So that's again going to be another trend that is going to become more and more popular in the future. So last but not the least, testing budgets too will grow, because it has been identified that in 2019 about 40% of the product budget will be allocated for software testing on average. That would also mean that hopefully as QA engineers will be having more devices to test applications on when it comes to mobiles. So we all know how hard it is to find a device when it comes to testing mobile applications. And also I think with the shift from commercial software to open source tools, there also the companies will save a lot of money, and that too can be allocated towards other types of testing. And not only that, I think if as QA engineers we also possess the above mentioned skills like automation and stuff, I think the value of QA engineers themselves too will be more and more increased, because the role of software testing is becoming more and more important in the future when it comes to shorten development lives. So concluding the talk, I would say that to keep up with the technological changes in the world, and to keep up with the trends in the future, we would need to adapt ourselves as developers and both as QA engineers to make sure that we have the necessary skills to undertake anything that we come across in the future. And also the increased usage of mobile applications or mobiles will be another pretty important thing in the future that we'll have to counter. We'll have to be testing a lot of mobile related things in the future rather than web-based things. And also we'll have to be testing a lot of IoT devices, and also big data and security will be one of the most important things when it comes to testing in the future. So that's the 10 most interesting trends that are going to come up with the software testing area in the future. So with that, we'll go for a small video which also talks about some of the technologies that are going to emerge in the coming future in the software industry.
The top 10 strategic technology trends are key trends that the enterprise cannot afford to ignore. You can't ignore them because they have significant potential for impact and disruption on enterprises over the next 5 years. As we look at the top 10 trends, we categorize them into 3 big themes that link together. It's all about the growth of the intelligent digital mesh. Intelligence is a very important set of trends to look at. There's 3 key trends. First is AI foundation, and that tells it all right there. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is increasingly a foundation component of all of the applications and all of the services and all of the things in our world around us. which leads us to the two subsidiary trends: intelligent apps and analytics, and intelligent things. When we look at intelligent apps and analytics, you have to focus on where we're going to add intelligent capabilities to those systems. Think of intelligent user interface with things like conversational interfaces we'll talk about later. Think of intelligent actions, so your applications themselves have autonomous processes. And look at how AI improves the business intelligence and analytical systems for end users and enhancing what data scientists do. And as we look at all of this, I want you to think of that term AI not just as artificial intelligence and robotic things replacing people, but think augmented intelligence and assisting humans. And finally, I want you to think of swarms or collaborative intelligence, multiple intelligent things, drones, robots, autonomous vehicles working cooperatively together. It's that collaborative notion and the augmented notion that really can drive powerful AI capabilities in the future. Our second theme is digital, and this is all about merging the real world and the virtual world into this combined digital experience. As we do this, the world of the Internet of Things we've talked about for some time starts us out with the theme of digital twin. These are digital representations of real world things, and we can operate on these digital representations to drive better maintenance and repair and operations of physical assets, and otherwise have a digital representation of the real world. This takes us to the next trend, which is cloud to the edge. We've got to think about edge computing and using the processing power at the edge, these edge devices that we hold in our hand or are in the Internet of Things, or near servers by that can act as gateways. And so when you think of cloud as a style of computing, not a physical delivery system. So we'll have faraway cloud services that will deliver capabilities to near servers and out onto the edge as well. So we've got to think of this distributed computing environment. And finally, the last two trends are looking at conversational systems and immersive experience. And when we look at those, the conversational systems are about how we interact with systems. So we're going to interact through language and other types of systems. On the immersive experience, it's about artificial and virtual reality and mixed reality and how we perceive the digital world. Between those two, the user interface you think of today will radically change over the next 5 years for the apps you buy and the applications you build. Our third theme in the top 10 is the mesh. The mesh is really all about connections, dynamic connections of people, processes, applications, technologies, and devices. The first trend that we have here is blockchain. Blockchain is all about creating a shared, distributed, immutable ledger with cryptographic validation of the transactions that go in the ledger. The key value of blockchain is really the fact that it isn't tied to an individual enterprise or an individual application. It deals with the connections across that in a very dynamic way to reduce technical friction and reduce business friction. Our second trend deals with event processing. Now, we've typically used request-driven models. We call services with APIs and we link them together in some more rigid ways, and that'll be necessary for certain things. But for this dynamic world that I've been talking about around the top 10 with IoT and other things, this notion of event processing and a more flexible and dynamic way of linking things together is important. So you want to think of event processing and request-driven mechanisms as equal citizens in your development portfolio in the way that you orchestrate services. Finally, think of continuous adaptive risk and trust. That's our final trend, and it looks at the mental model you've got to have around security. It's this continuous adaptive process. There's two key things that are really new and interesting that you particularly want to look at here. One is this notion of DevSecOps. So bring development and operations together for DevOps, but insert security into that whole process as well. And finally, think of deception technologies. Deception technologies are taking this age-old notion of a honeypot. Now, if you set up these fake servers or fake applications, your users are never going to get to that in the normal course of the day. But if you've been penetrated and you don't know it, those bad guys might be going after them, and then you can highly identify that the bad guys are in your network. So think of deception technologies and DevSecOps as two new things that you've got to take a close look at in the coming year. Your future is the intelligent digital mesh. Intelligent capabilities increasingly forming the backbone of all of your systems. Digital, creating this digital business and digital ecosystem future where we're merging the real and the virtual world together into the future digital reality. And the mesh that looks at maximizing and optimizing the connections between people and processes and technologies. That is your future.
Right. So these are some of the references that I used in creating this presentation. So hope you got something out of the presentation. You could polish your skills for the coming future, both as developers and QAs. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.